Hello and welcome back to 20th Century Dude. Today we're going to be shaking it up a little bit differently. We're going to actually be focusing on video games. Now today I just wanted to share what I think are probably some of my top 10 favorite video games of all time. Now, granted this list is probably going to be all over the place. It's not exactly the most consistent thing ever, or maybe it is. And also, to be honest, it's none of these games are anything that you're gonna find on the PlayStation or the Xbox or any of those kind of consoles. Because honestly, I've only played on a PlayStation 3 a couple of times, so I don't exactly own one for myself. And I've never played on an Xbox, which I know is probably gonna be a huge surprise to many people. But I've never once touched an Xbox. I've just never played on one, ever. So I would say it's pretty much, if you want to think of this as a consistent list, probably leans a little more towards the Nintendo side of things. But again, it's also pretty much all over the place. You're going to see games from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. I don't think anything from the 2020s because I haven't exactly played too much that's relatively new. But you're going to see a wide variety of games from probably the past 40 to 50 years at this point. So there's a lot of ground that we're covering here. And another one that didn't make it onto the list is probably Asteroids. That's really digging it far back. It's an oldie, but a goodie, I think. You get some basic gameplay, which is, fun to play. And honestly, old games can be fun. Sometimes it can be very challenging. I think they were made so you couldn't beat them back in the day. But old games, they could be fun. But otherwise, those are sort of one or two games that didn't exactly make it onto this list. So diving right into it, we have right off the bat Super Mario Maker. Now, I'm sort of roping 1 and 2 in here. Because, for me, it's been a while since I played the first one. But I have the second one on Switch. So I think it's just more of an expansion for me of the first one. They're kind of almost the same thing in a way, right? It's sort of like the Wii Fit games. Wii Fit Plus is basically just Wii Fit, but with twice as many stuff, right? It's just an expansion of the same thing. So with the Mario Maker stuff, we got great creativity, and you can make any Mario game or any Mario level the way that you basically want to, right? And I think in the second one, you have the ability to create your own worlds, and you could put levels that you create in your own worlds as if you're advancing throughout the game, which is super nice. That you're basically playing a game almost that you yourself create. Now, I myself have the misfortune apparently of basically being a dick and creating hard levels on purpose, but then when I go to actually play them, I can't complete them anyway. So it was funny at first when I would give the Switch to my sister. It's try these three. Good luck if you end up completing them. And after 20 minutes, she gives up because she can't complete anything that I make for her. But then I play them and then I can't complete them anyway. So that's a misfortune for me. And I think it's just the Mario Maker stuff. It's just an underrated series from Nintendo. I don't know if these really get a big shout out at all, really. Nobody seems to really talk about the Mario Maker stuff. I think the Cinemassacre channel, he did some videos on this before, but otherwise I've not really seen a lot of attention put in the Mario Maker stuff, which I think is sad. Whether or not we'll get Mario Maker 3, I don't know. I've never heard any news. Maybe a Nintendo fan knows more than I do, and maybe we are getting one on the way, but I have no idea. But then again, I heard Nintendo's developing a new console anyway, so I'm going to guess if we're getting Mario Maker 3, probably for whatever it is Nintendo has in store. And up next we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I think for me is easily the best of the Smash Bros. Games, but I've also never played Melee also. And I played the original one once. So my familiarity with the series mostly comes from Brawl, the fourth one, and Ultimate, honestly, because those are the ones I've probably played on the most. And we've got many great fighters here, many great levels, and honestly a lot of creativity on like what kind of like worlds and platforms you can build. I think Ultimate also probably makes like the best multiplayer experience with friends because we have like a lot of control now whether or not we want to like throw like items onto there, how long, rounds last, if anything, how long it takes for people to basically be kicked out of the game if they like lose too much. And I think basically because of the title, I don't know. I honestly hope for me, especially since they keep updating it anyway, I really hope that this is the last of the Smash Brothers game. I mean, not to say that they're going to make like a sixth one or anything, but I think for me, it's like we don't really need any more sequels because this is the best one for me. They've topped it. I don't really know where Nintendo can go from here because this is easily the best of the bunch as far as Smash Brothers is concerned. I mean, hey, if we even had a Nintendo Cinematic Universe, I'd see this as kind of the end game almost. Probably. That's just me anyway. And I guess concerning the story mode in here, I'm not really big on Smash Brothers story mode for either Brawl or this. I just don't care about it as much, I guess. But whatever, I guess. So up next we have the Oregon Trail, and I'm mostly going to be talking about the first one. I know there's one for the Wii that I played pretty often, and there's also one, I guess, from the Nintendo Switch, but I never bought that one. I just didn't like how the layout was. But Oregon Trail is kind of an interesting one. My parents remember playing this back in, I guess, when they first introduced computer class for their schools. They had the old Apple II computers, and this is what they'd spend their time basically doing in computer class. But honestly, the Oregon Trail should also be saved for if I wanted to do a top 10 least favorite games of all time because, well, let's be honest, there are plenty of moments in this game where you just really want to throw the computer or whatever you're playing it on. Such is the way with old games, I guess, but especially with Oregon Trail because, my goodness, like, you could be having the time of your life, but then all of a sudden you have no money, you have like no clothing, no food. Everybody has dysentery, of course. And then that's it. That's the end of the game. You could be like one stop away from finally reaching Oregon, and then that's basically it. Everybody's dead. Oh well. But that's Oregon Trail in a nutshell. It's really a game of chance, and the computer will literally just throw things at you. Like, okay, you're doing pretty good right now. You're about halfway there. Now, what if we did this and piss you off for the next 15 minutes, right? That's just Oregon Trail in a nutshell. And up next, we have Super Mario 64. Now, I'm roping both the original and the DS version in this. I guess some of you might look at this as two separate games. That's fine. I just look at the DS as basically the same entity, but a little expanded on, especially with like maybe some additional levels, characters, of course. It changes the story up a little bit. But I think both versions are kind of great, and I kind of like Super Mario 64 better than your traditional Mario Bros. Game, honestly. But that's just me. But I mostly grew up with the DS version. My exposure to the original was basically the port they did for the Nintendo Switch. There's I think it was on the Mario All Stars. There's like 3 different games on there. They have Sunshine, and I think the first Mario Galaxy and the original 64, all crammed into one game card, which I think was pretty nice. That was an obvious Christmas gift for myself, obviously, a couple years ago. But I mostly grew up with the DS version because honestly, that's what me and my friends had, right? Sometimes we would play on the bus on the way to school. We did the multiplayer option where you're supposed to get like stars or no, I think it was like shines or something you're supposed to get, and whoever had the most at the end of like 30 seconds or something won a round. I'm sure you probably know what I'm talking about. But we did it a little differently since Wario was many of ours like favorite character. For us, whoever had the Wario cap at the end of the round winning the game. Sometimes I wouldn't care. I'd be getting all the stars so I can get all the points for myself. But whoever had the Wario cap at the end of the game won that round. And if you did slot the Wario cap, well, chances are you were gonna get beaten to death every time, right? Because it was a fight to the death to get this thing. But as far as the actual like story mode and whatnot, yeah, I had to do a lot of walkthroughs, like video walkthroughs and gameplays that people did online just to get through courses that I would get extremely mad at because I could not figure out how to complete something, or I knew how to complete something, but there was something missing I didn't know how to do, and it's just, yeah. Surprised my Nintendo DS survived for so long because I can't tell you how many times I've thrown that thing probably. But another sin, hey, where's Waluigi, right? You know, you have Mario, Luigi, and Wario. Where's Waluigi? He's probably like the coolest out of all of them, and he's like never featured in these things at all. Like, where's Waluigi in 64, right? Like, if you're gonna do a version for the Switch, I think it's kind of one of those opportunities. Is like, I hope you take advantage of it, because please, more Waluigi all the time. And up next, we have another DS, and yes, it's going to be biased towards this one. We have Mario Kart DS, which for me is my personal favorite Mario Kart game. But I know there are many personal faves for many people, right? You're going to have people who are like Mario Kart 8 is their favorite. Maybe there's going to be that one person in Mario Kart 7 is their favorite. I haven't heard a lot about Mario Kart Wii being someone's favorite. I think I have a friend like Double Dash. That's his like definitive Mario Kart. That's his favorite like go-to Mario Kart game. But I guess what you grow up with is what you're gonna like congregate around. I think, right? Maybe if you even want to go way far back, maybe Super Mario Kart was your favorite Mario Kart game, right? And I know I might be the only one that thinks Mario Kart DS is their favorite one. Some people now think the DS graphics are sort of limiting, but I think I would disagree. I think they're still fine, and for the time, I think they're really good. I mean, if it's one of those things where you're comparing them to like the latest, like the graphics to the latest Xbox or the latest Nintendo game or whatever is out right now for the PC, right? Of course, the graphics are going to appear sort of limiting, right? I know people even considered it limiting compared to like the GameCube at the time, right? But I mean, to be honest, the DS was more of a like take with you kind of console on the go. The GameCube was kind of at home, so of course it's going to be meant for like a bigger screen, whereas the DS is sort of like smaller and compact. But we have still a lot of great tracks on Mario Kart DS. I know I play the balloon battle on top of the Nintendo DS in space, if you know what I'm talking about. I've probably played that one the most out of all of them, probably. It's just a great course. And there's a lot of great things to unlock, including characters. And honestly, the character of Rob, I don't recall him ever showing up in another Mario Kart game again. At least unless I looked over something, I don't remember him showing up. So Rob was great. He was my favorite character in the entire thing. So where's he at, right? Personal favorite Rainbow Road course. Just, I think this is going to be a game of personal preference, honestly. And up next, we have probably one of, if not my favorite Wii game. We have the original Wii Sports. Now, this is just sort of one of my personal favorites. And yes, it only has like 5 sports on it. But I still think even with 5 games, it's still 5 times the amount of fun, right? It's one of the first games on the Wii, and and I do remember when we first got the Wii for ourselves. It was I was actually the first me created on the system. So out of all the like little me characters we have running around, I am actually number one. So it's nice to know that I'm the first one there and probably the last one. I know we have Nintendo Sports, but I mean, I like Nintendo Sports. It's not the same. It doesn't hold the same magic, right? That, other people, right? Like Nintendo Sports just doesn't have the same magic that I had with like the Wii Sports stuff. And sent and I think it still holds up pretty good, right? Like the graphics on like maybe a DS or something, it holds up pretty well, and I usually try to get around to playing the Wii about maybe at least once a month, and Wii Sports is one I put in pretty often, so I'm still around to play it. And the soundtrack, I listen to the soundtrack plenty of times, which I know is kind of odd for this type of game, but it's pretty good. And up next we have PacMan, which is another oldie but still a goodie. And I think Pac-Man is going to be a surprise for many people. It's like, Pac-Man of all things? It's just sort of a basic game. So, I mean, why would you, like, put it on this list? But, I don't know. I think it's pretty addicting sometimes, at least for me anyway. But I'm actually, like, pretty good at it, right? I don't start, like, petering out and, like, losing until I'm, like, a couple levels down the road. So, for a basic game, I don't want to say I have a lot of skill, but I'm pretty good at it for some reason. I don't know what it is. And it's an extremely iconic game. I think without Pac-Man, we wouldn't have like a lot of games down the road. And yeah, it's just iconic too. So there's that. And up next, we have one of my favorite games of all time. And I think probably one of the best video games out there for a reason. We have Minecraft, which is extremely creative, and honestly, I could just sit down and play it for hours upon end, right? I don't think this is something I'm ever going to get tired of. And really, there's just no limit to what you could achieve, really, right? The graphics are unique. I know my uncle complains about it. He's like, in the 80s, everything was like blocky, but now all of a sudden, why are we going back to things that are blocky again? Which I tried to explain. It's part of the creativity, it's part of the aesthetic. And I'm going to be the one guy, I'm going to be honest, I prefer creative mode over survival. It's just a hot take. I will play creative mode any day of the week. Survival, okay, sure. Like, I know there's like something of a journey you have to go through for survival, but I think for creative, I just like that everything's like right there. Like all your materials are right there, ready to go, and you just do whatever you want. And I think that's great. I think speaking of survival, there is like a little, I guess, haunted mansion world that I had loaded up. Sometimes I'll play. It could be really fun. So basically, I did spawn like a survival world, and then there ended up being this like giant mansion I found in the middle of the woods. It's like, oh, that's nice, pretty good. But the problem is that seems to also be like a hot spot for where all these like evil mobs seem to like gravitate towards, especially at night, like when they're all out. And it usually then becomes a game of how long can I survive in this like haunted house of sorts before I die, right? And it could be pretty fun. Although at this point you notice that there's a lot of like holes and things that are like blown apart, probably because I don't know, creepers I've run into. I've run into those too many times, and that's why there's like holes in the house now. But I'm more partial to like Minecraft. I played on like my Android phone and the Switch and Kindle, because the Kindle was what I first started out with, honestly. And I know a lot of people are like, no, the PC is better. I get that, but I think for me, what I have on a phone or a Switch is just much easier for me to control. I'm not gonna remember any keyboard controls. I never do, right? It's just I can't do it. I can't memorize like where on the keyboard I'm supposed to press for what. But maybe I'm not as much of a computer game person. And back in the day, I believe it was called Cave Game when it started out, I think, if I remember correctly, because I can remember, like, maybe 2010-ish, like, the very early days of this game, very early on, and wondering what the heck it was that people were, like, playing on their phones. I guess it's been, what, 14, 15 years at this point this game has been out? So it's been out for quite a while. Great game. Can't say the same about the upcoming movie we have. That just looks like utter garbage. But, you know, this is what happens. We give control to a studio and have no idea what the heck they're doing. And up next, we have Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga. Now, again, I'm going to lean a little more towards the DS. But the Wii is also pretty great, too. It's probably the only two consoles I've played it on anyway. I don't recall if it was put on anything else. I think the Game Boy would have think they would have stopped manufacturing things for the Game Boy at that point. It probably would have been out for Xbox. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if there was like an Xbox version, but not like I played an Xbox before anyway. But I think Lego Star Wars Complete Saga is it's another great game I've had with great memories, really. Just a lot of memories that I've had with this game. And it was like one of my earliest exposures to like getting into the Star Wars world at that point, because I was like 10 when I started watching the Star Wars movies, of course, in the wrong order. I started with The Phantom Menace, which I know you're not supposed to do, but I did it anyway because I was young and stupid and I did not understand why people were telling me, start with 4. And of course, somebody who doesn't understand what they're talking about, it's like, why would I start with 4? That's stupid. But then once you start going through them, it's like, oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, okay, it makes sense. So I'd only had watched like a couple of the movies by that point, and then I'd gotten this game and started playing with it. It only had the 6 movies for the game at the time, because that was what was considered a complete saga, but I don't know, maybe that was the only stuff we needed. Who knows? The DS version, I think, just has a lot of maybe intentional or unintentional humorous moments, but it is a Lego Star Wars game, so I shouldn't expect too much from that, right? Like the cutscenes in the DS, they're just they really are like horribly put together, like by today's standards. I'm sure for the DS at the time it was probably fine, but man, back looking at them now, it's like, oh my goodness, like that's a little yeah, horribly animated. There's like pieces of like black in between like clips. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the thing they tell you in film school to like never edit like that. But I guess nobody got the memo when they were making cutscenes for the DS version. But cutscenes in really any of those games they're funny. They're like really hilarious. But otherwise, we have some simple gameplay with straightforward tasks, right? It's easy fun. Sometimes you need a second person, like if you're playing the Wii or something to help you on a level. I know I needed to bring a friend over one time to help me with the first level for, what was it, Return of the Jedi and Jabba's Palace. It helped me defeat the Rancor, but yeah, it's just good fun. And last but not least, and it's going to be an odd one because honestly, I haven't played this in like way over a decade. It's Donkey Kong Country. I'm primarily focused on the Game Boy Color because that's what I played it on. I played it on the Advance a couple of times, but the Game Boy Color is what I had for 90% of the time, really. Great memories with this game, honestly. Probably the most fun I've ever had with something. And I wasn't even like a big serious gamer at the time. But I'm going to be honest, I've not played the Game Boy version in probably years. It's been, what, 10, 12 years probably? Because I was starting to have problems with my console that I got. It like started glitching and slowing down. I didn't know why. So I assumed probably because it was older, it was just wearing itself out. Although, now that I think about it, I did realize maybe I should have just changed the batteries and that would have been okay. But I was younger and stupid and didn't realize that at the time. So I probably threw out my Game Boy Color when I didn't really need to, unfortunately. And with Donkey Kong Country, it's basically somewhat similar gameplay to Super Mario Brothers, but it's reconfigured for the Donkey Kong world. So, I mean, there's going to be things that are different here and there. You know, you have your typical boss match and stuff like that. Great soundtrack, too. I listen to the soundtrack probably constantly because it reminds me of all the fun times I've had with that game. And the underwater and cave like soundtracks, that's just great music, great stuff in this game. But if you know what this game needs, it's the DK rap, because that's what it always needed was more of the DK rap. But otherwise, that's my top 10 favorite games of all time. So I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If there's any games on here you would have liked to have seen instead, or anything you think shouldn't have been on this list, let me know in the comments below. Or if there's any of these 10 games that are on your top 10 favorite video games of all time. Again, let me know in the comments below. And otherwise, have a great rest of the day, and see you.